I'm Compliance Officer at Waitaki District Council and the main person involved with overseeing the legislation for earthquake-prone buildings. Now, the legislation, which was only introduced in July 2017, so the Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment have given Council guidance on identifying potential earthquake-prone buildings, and given the ongoing seismic activity New Zealand incurs, specific timelines to achieve this. Now, we've had an initial look at the non-residential buildings in the high-risk zone, OHA, and at this stage none have been identified as having unreinforced masonry, being 12 metres or 3 stories high and not timber framed, nor built prior to 1935. Priority buildings located in the medium and high-risk areas cover buildings used to provide emergency response services such as police, fire, ambulance and hospitals, buildings likely to be needed in emergency such as shelters as per a civil defence emergency plan, and any education centre including preschools and tertiary institutions that are regularly occupied by at least 20 people. In addition to these buildings, any part of an unreinforced masonry building that could fall from a building in an earthquake and fall onto any part of a public road, footpath or other thoroughfare, or a building that has been identified as having the potential to impede a transport route of strategic importance. Unreinforced masonry buildings include strengthened unreinforced masonry buildings unless there is evidence that strengthening has achieved at least 34% New Building Standard, or NBS. Unfortunately, we do use a few acronyms, EPB and NBS, probably the most prevalent in this legislation. Building of any construction type with significant original unreinforced masonry sectional part, and some characteristics could include solid brick or stone facades, solid masonry gables, end walls, and brick chimneys. Now, like I said, we've already had a look through buildings in our high-risk zone area and assessed there's no potential earthquake-prone buildings there. We have started creating a list in our medium-risk areas, which we'll look at further and assess each building, starting with priority buildings against the MB guidance. There are government agencies, national and local businesses, which are implementing their own projects to improve their buildings and bring them up and beyond the minimum rating, which is awesome to see. Timeframes. So we have, like I said, we have started the process of identifying potential EPBs in the high and medium risk zones. And our next step will be to complete this identification process by consulting with the public, physically getting out into the community to see if there are any non-residential properties which may have been missed from desktop assessments. Any potential EPBs in the high risk zone and the priority buildings in the medium risk zone need to be formally identified by 1 July 2022, which just gets closer and closer. We also need to take into consideration the volume of buildings we notify at once to ensure that resources such as engineers are not overly stretched, so we can receive quality reports within the timeframes given to the building owners. The seismic assessment includes an earthquake rating, which gives a percentage on how the building or part meets the seismic performance requirements of the building code compared to a new building built on the same site with the current building code. If that assessment is below 34% of the new building standard, then we're required to formally identify it as an earthquake-prone building, put it on the National EPB Register, and issue an Apb Notice, which must be affixed to the building in a prominent place or adjacent to the building, normally at the public entrance. We also are required to provide a copy of the notice to certain parties with an interest in the building or land, such as a mortgager. If the owner does not provide a report within the time frame required, the TA or council can issue an EPB notice as if the building has a 0% NBS rating. Now, these notices are to inform building unit users and the public about a building or part of a building, potential seismic performance in a moderate earthquake compared to a new building on the same site. These notices, amongst other things, identify the building or part that is earthquake prone and gives the rating determined and states the deadline for completing seismic work. If the notice ceases to be attached or is illegible, then the owner needs to notify council. But this is a good point to remember, WorkSafe's approach to earthquake-related risks. They say, and this is direct from their website, that the most appropriate agency to deal with any matters concerning earthquake resilience is the council. And if a building is found to be earthquake prone, this doesn't necessarily mean it shouldn't be occupied. The Building Act provides a period of several years for strengthening or demolition work to be undertaken. And while the risk of harm to people in or around an earthquake-prone building is greater than an equivalent new building, this doesn't typically require short-term action. WorkSafe expects that you'll fulfil your duties under the Building Act when you're addressing the seismic risk. Thank you.